More feuding between the district and the federal government over the district's war on drugs and crime.
Washington, D.C. is a city full of bad news. We hear about so much crime, drugs, and violence every day that we sometimes begin to forget about the real people suffering behind the news stories and headlines. What happens to these people? Who are the folks caught up in this urban American nightmare? It couldn't be this group, right? These folks are just out for some fun and exercise after work. They seem to be about as far away from the bad news as you can get.
Went to a crack house one day, and Mary was there.
I was living in that crack house.
Yeah, Mary was there, and I was like...
I had lost the nice apartment up on 2nd Street.
I didn't know who Mary was at first, you know?
Mm.
I was looking at Mary like, what happened?
Yeah.
Little did I know it didn't take much longer. But I was, you know, I was living in the crack house.
Wasn't washing, I wasn't doing my hair, you know, I wasn't eating, you know. All I lived for was to get a hit of cocaine or a drink of vodka or something.
Crack cocaine made me live a way I never imagined for any human being.
I drank and drug for so long, for 23 years out there in the street. And my only thing was knowing how the street ways out there, the so-called, quote, bad people. You know, I didn't know about the good side of life of living. I didn't know how to communicate with nobody.
We've been hearing from some of the people society almost forgot, people who had at one time been written off as hopeless, even by themselves. But Pamela, Mary, Reginald, and the others have something else in common now. They're all alcohol and drug-free. They all have jobs and pay taxes. And they're all part of a very caring community, the one inside Lazarus House.
I'm a cook at hot shops. It's a humbling experience. You know, it doesn't pay a lot of money. You know, it's hard work because it's hot and everything, but my sponsor keeps telling me, be humble, you know, appreciate the fact that I do have a job.
After about 4 months being in the fellowship, I found a job. Then I'm still on that job right now, in a supervisory capacity, you know. Today is my 3rd year anniversary, you know. Today I was evaluated on my job, you know, outstanding. You know, so many good things are happening in my life.
I asked God to give me a job, you know, making big dough. I wanted to make big dough when I get out here because I'm that type of person. So God sent me down to Pizza Hut, you know, and I was making big dough, you know what I mean? I mean, my job title was a dough master, you know, so.
How did this unlikely transformation come about? It may be a miracle of sorts, but it wasn't by chance. You could say it's a premeditated miracle. And it all started with the creation of Samaritan Inns in Washington, D.C. in 1986. The inns provide transitional housing and job placement for formerly homeless people.
What we do at the inns is provide that shorter term, more intensive, supportive, structured environment to help a person make this dramatic transition, a complete turnaround that they need to make in their lives, a turnaround that they said they want to make.
I was watching people come into our program who had been living on the street, some 15 years, some 30 years, some 2 years. But I was watching them come in and get jobs, get help with their addiction, get counseling if that's what they needed, and most importantly, experience what it was like to have a home, experience community.
We saw them working, living wonderful lives, giving back to the community. But then when it came time for them to move on, when there was nothing for them that was decent, affordable, nothing, no context that would support their ongoing recovery, nothing that would help them stay in their job and do that kind of work that they needed to do. Too often, all these things that had come together for them would come undone.
I helped a resident, a Samaritan Inns resident, move into the only room that he could afford, that he could find on his minimum wage salary. And as we moved his things in, I remember we carried his things in paper bags and moved them into his new so-called home. It was very obvious to me, first of all, it was depressing, dark and depressing, not decent by any means. And it was very clear to me that he was going to be sharing the bathroom with a drug user.
We had people that were murdered, tried to commit suicide, many people that relapsed.
So we interviewed some people to find out what it was they really needed. It's people who were still in the Samaritan's programs and some who had moved on. And what did they need to continue this journey they had begun? And almost without exception, people came up with 3 things that they needed. They needed housing that was decent and affordable. They needed a place, at least for some amount of time, they needed a place that was drug and alcohol free. And above all, I think they needed a place that provided community, a sense of home, a sense of being on this journey with others, not alone.
We figured out that if Lazarus House was established, it was purchased, renovated, furnished, and was established completely debt-free, that we could charge median rents less than half of the market rents and completely pay for all the costs of operating this place and providing ongoing supportive services. The Lazarus House represents a longer-term opportunity to solidify your recovery, to build on relationships that are healthy and good for you, relationships that you've begun to establish in the time you've been in the inns, and an opportunity to develop your work habits and to improve, to be advanced in your employment so that you have the opportunity and the possibility of affording alternative housing that can be permanent housing for you.
And at the time, they were building Lazarus House, and I remember we used to walk around the corner and say, oh, that's gonna be nice. Oh, I'm gonna move there, I'm gonna move there, you know. And it was just like, it was good to be able to look forward to something.
The real visionary here are the people who have invested in Lazarus House. The visionaries here are not the ones who look at this in terms of its brick and mortar and the fact that perhaps it'll add to the tax base of D.C. The visionaries today are the ones who see the change in lives, the change in the community. I want to suggest this is the beginning of a great building effort for our city, our country, and hopefully it'll help inspire the whole world.
When I first learned about Lazarus House, I was in treatment, and I seen it on the news. They made us watch 1 hour news each day. And I seen the cutting of the ribbon with, at the time, Sharon Pratt Dixon and Barbara Bush. And I said I wanted to live there. As a matter of fact, that night I got on my knees and I prayed, and I claimed a room in Lazarus House.
The Lazarus House experience sort of exemplifies the great potential that exists within our community and indeed within our nation. It shows how we can achieve this magnificent structure, a structure that now means that for some 80 families who would otherwise be homeless, they now have a home. We truly must build upon this experience because it is so urgently needed within our community.
Everyone who visits Lazarus House will come away from this place with a renewed optimism that there are solutions to homelessness that work, solutions that work for the community and for the individual. Lazarus House stands as a challenge to us all. We can do this.
This is the best I've lived before my life, you know. I never had a place with my name on it, anything, you know, a phone and all that, you know.
When I found out about Lazarus House, right, I was so happy. I was like, yeah, you know, I can move in.
Lazarus House residents each have their own room, but share a kitchen, living area, and bath with 5 to 9 others. This unique arrangement encourages development of positive social skills while providing a strong environment for mutual support.
When I come home in the evening, those guys over there always ask me, are you all right? How you doing? What's going on with you today? People everywhere are concerned with me. And that's because I live here. This is a safe haven.
When I first came out, I was like, I do not want to live with women. I don't like women. They always in your business, you know. And I've come to find out that women are the best thing in the world, you know, when we stick together.
I can fool a person on the street, or I could fool somebody I work with that had no involvement with drugs. But doesn't much get over on these guys around here.
I mean, I can't isolate here. You know, if I hit that door, somebody said, Pamela, where you going? You know, and you know, I can't turn around and say, why? You know, it's the caring. You know, it's the genuine caring.
You know, we look after each other like brothers. You know, if we see one person attitude, behavior starts to show, you know, kind of negative, we just step in and say, hey, we know this and what's going on. And that's how we do it, you know, and that helps me stay clean.
People are very supportive of my daughter, you know. Hey. Blow a kiss to the camera.
The fact that Lazarus House is totally self-supporting is attractive to businesses, foundations, and individuals who have contributed to its development. But it is also a key part of the residents' growth in taking responsibility in their lives and in improving self-esteem.
This is a way to get me back into the mainstream of life as an active adult in society. I learned to pay my rent and pay my rent on time.
The way Lazarus House works is exemplified by the story of Philip.
He had really come alive and really began to shine, and what became so clear about him was his capacity to care about other people and to help pull other people into a new way of life, a drug and alcohol-free way of life. And so he had helped a lot of people, but one day he was picked up for some old offenses, behaviors of his drugging life.
I see my whole life flash past me when they came and picked me up, because this particular judge I was dealing with, he was known for giving out time, nothing but time. He never let anybody walk.
The day of his trial, our social services coordinator from Samaritan Inns and from Lazarus House, where he now lives, went to the trial, and they just shared with the judge, you know, here's a man who's rebuilding his life. Here's a man who yes, he was selling drugs before, but now his life is an example to people who are out there destroying theirs. And I think the judge was genuinely moved, and he told the gentleman, he said, you know, I was prepared to give you 8 to 10 years, but I think I will let you go back to Lazarus House tonight.
I had to get on witness stand last, and I had to tell the judge how I felt about what I had did, by being dishonest, how leaving the state without permission, and telling him I didn't hold no punches, I just told him the truth.
One of the benefits of life in a setting like Lazarus House is that it gives the residents a chance to dream about their futures once again.
I'm getting my papers and stuff together now to go back to school.
One of my goals is to be like an innkeeper at Samaritan Inns.
I was real happy about my grades, you know, and I got 2 B's and an A.
Hopefully in August I'll be going to University of Maryland. You know, I'll be living here for a year, and this is the first time that I've lived anywhere for a whole year.
How can we, in the face of the need that we see every day, that we read about in the paper all year round, how can we sit back when we know we have something that works, something that can meet those needs, and sit on our hands and do nothing? And as long as we can continue to enjoy the support of corporations, foundations, people that say, we want to help you continue to do this, as long as those pieces are all in place, we're going to move forward, because there isn't any other choice.
It's like a foundation to grow on.
I'm coming home from work, I see all these things going on outside, but when I put my card in that slot down there and that door open, I'm safe.
I'm really thankful that God said, I'll give you another chance, girl.
You know, for so long, I shucked all my responsibilities. Today, Lazarus House makes me responsible.
I'm loved. I'm loved.
Thank those people that donated their funds to build this one right here, you know, because they made it a place for us, people like me and other people, to live and start a new life all over again. And just got a whole lot better.
I wouldn't trade what I have right now for nothing in the world.